My name is Naomi Blake, and I'm 32 years old. I didn't know my life was about to crack cleanly down the middle until my fiancé looked at me like I was a stranger, like I'd turned our home into a crime scene and he was just waiting for me to slip up. He didn't say it at first. He watched. That was the worst part. Because from the outside, we were the kind of couple people like to believe in. The kind strangers called goals, with a jealous laugh. 4 years together. 2 years living in the same apartment. 6 months engaged, after a proposal on a beach at sunset that Ethan Hale had filmed twice because the first angle didn't capture the waves the way he wanted. He posted it everywhere. I smiled in every photo because I thought I was supposed to. Everyone said we looked perfect. And maybe we were, if perfection meant lighting, timing, and never showing the moment your stomach drops for no reason at 2 a.m. because you can't stop thinking about the word oncologist. It started in March. Not dramatically, not like a movie where you collapse in the kitchen and someone screams your name. It started like a quiet theft, energy disappearing, sleep that didn't restore anything, weight sliding off my body even though I wasn't trying, my skin looking dull in the bathroom mirror, my jeans fitting looser in a way that should have felt like a win, except it didn't. I kept telling myself it was stress, deadlines, routine, life. I was the type of woman who could rationalize anything if it meant I didn't have to be afraid. But after a few weeks, even Ethan noticed. "You've been quiet," he said one night, while we were brushing our teeth side by side. He spoke around toothpaste foam, like it wasn't serious, like he wasn't studying my face in the mirror. "I'm fine," I lied automatically. I wasn't ready to admit that fine felt like walking through water. I finally scheduled a physical I'd been putting off. Routine labs, basic blood work. The kind of adult responsibility you do and forget about. I remember sitting in the clinic parking lot afterward, texting Ethan, "Done. Just boring checkup stuff." He replied with a heart and a joke about how I was finally becoming responsible. 3 days later, my phone rang while I was at work. The caller ID showed my doctor's office, and something in my chest went cold before I even answered. "Hi, Naomi," Dr. Priya Patel said, and I knew immediately this wasn't the cheerful follow-up call where they tell you to drink more water and lower your cholesterol. Her voice was calm in that careful way doctors get when they're trying not to scare you. "We got your blood work back," she continued. "I'd like you to come in to discuss it." A normal person might have said, "Okay, when?" and left it at that. But fear makes you impatient. "Is it bad?" I asked. My hand was so tight around my phone, my knuckles hurt. "It shows some concerning markers," she said. "Your liver enzymes are elevated, and there are other indicators we need to investigate further." I stared at the wall of my office like it might change shape and give me a different ending. "I'm referring you to an oncologist," she added. The word landed like the glass dropped on tile. Oncologist. Cancer. I felt my throat tighten. "Do you think it's cancer?" I managed. "We don't know yet," she said gently, "but we need to rule it out. I've made you an appointment with Dr. Sarah Chen for next week. In the meantime, Naomi, I need you to start taking better care of yourself. Nutrition, exercise, stress management. Whatever this is, your body needs to be as strong as possible." When the call ended, I sat completely still, like moving would make it real. Then I drove home on autopilot. I remember pulling into our parking spot, turning off the car, and just sitting there with my hands in my lap, staring at the steering wheel like I'd never seen it before. Inside the apartment, Ethan was in the kitchen, humming while he cooked, like the world was stable and obedient. He looked up and smiled. "Hey, babe, how was your day?" And the strangest thing happened. I smiled back. Not because I was okay. Because I didn't know how to bring death, or the possibility of it, into a room that smelled like garlic and warmth. So I didn't tell him. Not that night. I told myself I was protecting him. That I needed answers first. That there was no point in making him worry when I didn't even know what we were dealing with. I didn't realize that was the first brick I laid in the wall between us. The appointment with Dr. Chen led to more tests, a CT scan, more blood work, a biopsy, and waiting. So much waiting, it felt like my life had become a hallway with no doors. Every test took days to schedule, days to get results. Days where I'd wake up and touch my own ribs, feeling how sharp they'd gotten, and wonder what was growing inside me. And in those days, I did exactly what Dr. Patel told me to do. I started taking control. I joined a gym, not because I wanted abs. Because if my body was about to betray me, I wanted to at least meet it prepared. I cleaned up my diet. I learned what foods supported the liver, what inflammation looked like, how sugar hid in everything like a liar. I threw out the worn-out clothes I'd been living in for years and bought things that actually fit. Not because I wanted attention, Because I wanted to feel like a person, not a patient waiting to be named. I got a haircut. I started going to bed earlier. I started drinking water like it was medicine. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was doing something other than waiting to be diagnosed. Ethan noticed immediately. "You're going to the gym a lot lately," he commented one evening when I came home with my hair damp from a shower at the fitness center. "Yeah," I said, forcing casual, "just trying to get healthier." He watched me open the fridge. Then his gaze dropped to the new leggings I was wearing, the new jacket, the subtle perfume I'd put on because I was trying to feel human. "And the new clothes," he added, like it was an accusation disguised as a joke. I laughed lightly. I needed a change. He nodded, but his eyes didn't soften. They narrowed, just a fraction, like he was filing the information away. At first, he didn't push, but the atmosphere shifted. The way he hugged me felt like checking for distance. The way he kissed me felt like testing for guilt. When I stayed late at work, even when I'd told him hours earlier, he'd ask again, "Where were you?" Like he'd forgotten my answer on purpose. And I could feel something old in him rising, a wound with a familiar shape. He told me about his ex, Brianna, early in our relationship, how she'd cheated, how he'd found out through a message popping up on her phone while she was in the shower, how the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing she'd been living a second life right next to him. I'd held his face then and said, "I'm not her," and he'd believed me, until March, until my fear turned me secretive, until my survival plan started to look, to him, like someone preparing to leave. 2 weeks into my transformation, while I was still waiting for biopsy results, Ethan cornered me in the kitchen. I was chopping vegetables. The sound of the knife hitting the cutting board was steady, too steady, like I could slice fear into manageable pieces. He walked in and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "We need to talk," he said. I didn't look up right away. My hands kept moving because if I stopped, I might shake. "Okay," I said carefully. "What's up?" He exhaled through his nose, like he'd already decided the ending. "What's up?" he repeated, voice sharp. "You've been acting weird for weeks. Gym every day. New clothes, new hair. You barely touch me anymore. You're distant. You're hiding something." The knife paused midair. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. "Ethan," I began, choosing every word like it might explode. "I'm just trying to be healthier." He laughed once, no humor in it, and then his eyes locked onto mine, dark and certain. "You're cheating," he said. "I can feel it." The room went silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. My fingers tightened around the knife, not in anger, in disbelief, because I had been carrying the weight of possible cancer alone. And the man I loved, my fiancé, looked at my fear and saw betrayal. I set the knife down slowly, turned to face him, and in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about what was happening in my body. This was about what happened when life stopped being pretty. And I didn't yet know which diagnosis would hurt more. I stared at Ethan, waiting for the punchline that never came. "You're cheating," he repeated, quieter this time, like saying it softly might make it truer. "I know the signs, Naomi. I've lived this before." I felt something inside me close, not slam shut, not shatter, just quietly seal itself off, like a door I didn't realize I'd been holding open. "I'm not cheating on you," I said. "Then what is it?" he shot back. "Because this—" He gestured vaguely at me, at my clothes, my body, my existence. "This is exactly how it starts. The gym, the wardrobe, the distance. You barely look at me anymore." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the absurdity was choking. I had been staring down a potential cancer diagnosis, and he was cataloging my leggings like evidence. "I'm working on myself," I said carefully. "That's it." "That's not an answer." "It's the truth." "No," he snapped. "It's a half-truth, and half-truths are how people lie to themselves before they lie to their partners." I could see his fear now, raw, unfiltered. Not concern for me, fear for himself. Fear that he was about to be abandoned, replaced, made foolish again. "Brianna did this exact thing," he continued. "Started going to the gym, bought new clothes, said she was finding herself. And then I found out she was finding someone else." I swallowed. "I'm not Brianna." "Then prove it," he said. "Tell me what you're hiding." I almost did. The words were right there, pushing up against my teeth. Doctor, oncologist, biopsy, cancer. I almost told him everything, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the way he'd already convicted me. Maybe it was the fact that his first instinct wasn't concern, it was accusation. Or maybe I was just tired of explaining myself when I was barely holding myself together. "There's nothing to tell," I said quietly. "I'm trying to be healthier. That's it." "I don't believe you. That's your choice." He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "You're really going to do this?" he demanded. "You're really going to make me feel crazy?" I'm not making you feel anything, I said. You're choosing not to trust me. How can I trust you when you won't talk to me? How can I talk to you when you've already decided I'm guilty? We stood there, the air thick and unmoving. Then he turned and walked out of the kitchen. The bedroom door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames. That night, I lay awake listening to his breathing on the far edge of the bed, my hand resting on my own stomach, wondering what was happening inside me, while my relationship disintegrated inches away. Over the next week, the accusations multiplied. Subtle at first, then not so subtle at all. He checked my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. I caught him once, standing by the counter with my screen unlocked, his face pale when I cleared my throat. Your mom texted, he said quickly. I nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't explain. He asked where I'd been if I came home 5 minutes late. He commented when I smiled at a notification. He went through my coat pockets under the guise of looking for the spare keys. Who is she? He asked one night, his voice tight. There is no she, I replied. I'm not stupid, Naomi. Something is going on. You're right, I said calmly. Something is going on. Then tell me what it is. I smiled. I didn't mean to. It just happened. A small, tired smile. Because if I didn't laugh at the irony, I might scream. The woman he thought I was, a cheater, a liar, someone with a secret lover, felt like a character from someone else's life. This isn't funny, he snapped. You're being cruel. I never said it was funny. You're making me feel insane. I'm not making you feel anything, I said again. You're choosing a story instead of trusting me. That smile broke something in him. He stormed out of the apartment and didn't come back until after midnight. The next morning, my phone rang in a grocery store parking lot. Dr. Chen. My hands shook so badly I had to sit down on the curb. Naomi, she said gently, I have your biopsy results. Can you come in tomorrow morning? My chest tightened. Just tell me now, I whispered. Please. She hesitated, then sighed. It's not cancer. The world tilted. What? I breathed. The biopsy showed some abnormal cells, but they're benign. What you have is fatty liver disease. It's serious, but it's manageable with lifestyle changes. I pressed my palm against the concrete like I needed to anchor myself to the planet. So, I'm going to be okay. Yes, she said, with proper management. The changes you've already made, diet, exercise, that's exactly what you need to be doing. When the call ended, I sat there stunned. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of believing my body was turning against me. 3 weeks of holding that fear alone. And now, relief washed over me so hard I started crying right there in the parking lot. Not sobbing. Just tears slipping down my face as my shoulders finally dropped. When I got home that evening, Ethan was waiting. His eyes were red. He looked like someone who'd spent the day spiraling. I talked to Marcus, he said, and my friend Jenna. They think I should call off the wedding. I stared at him. Because if you're cheating now, he continued, you'll never stop. Something inside me went very still. Do you want to know why I've been going to the gym? I asked. He nodded eagerly. Yes. I met his eyes. 3 weeks ago, my doctor called me about abnormal blood work. She referred me to an oncologist. His face drained of color. What? I've spent the last 3 weeks getting tested for cancer, I said evenly. CT scans, biopsies, blood work, all of it. He couldn't speak. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. I got my results today, I continued. It's not cancer, it's a liver condition I can manage. He stared at me like he didn't recognize the room. I thought I might be dying, I said quietly. And you thought I was cheating. Tears filled his eyes. Naomi, You didn't ask if I was okay, I cut in. Not once. You didn't wonder if something was wrong with me. You went straight to betrayal. His knees hit the chair behind him, and he sat down hard, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't find words. Why didn't you tell me? He whispered. Because I was scared, I said. And because when you accused me, I needed to know something. What? If you'd trust me, I said. If you'd believe me when I said nothing was wrong. He covered his face with his hands. I'm so sorry, he choked. I watched him cry, feeling relief and grief tangled together. Because the worst part wasn't that he'd been wrong. It was that when everything got hard, he'd chosen to protect himself instead of me. And now that truth was sitting between us, impossible to unsee. The apology phase started immediately. By the next morning, Ethan was a wreck. He called in sick to work. He followed me from room to room like a ghost, offering coffee I didn't want, food I couldn't taste, words that arrived too late. I was scared, he kept saying, voice raw. I panicked. I thought I was losing you. I didn't argue with him. Not because I agreed, but because I was empty. The relief of knowing I wasn't dying had been so intense it left behind a hollow, exhausted calm. Like my nervous system had finally powered down after weeks of being stuck on high alert. I need space, I told him that afternoon. I need time to process everything. His face crumpled. Are we still engaged? He asked, barely audible. I looked down at the ring on my finger. The diamond caught the light, bright and impersonal. I don't know, I said honestly. I packed a bag and drove across town to my older sister's place. Danielle Blake opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug so tight my knees almost buckled. You don't have to explain right now, she said into my hair. Just breathe. That night, I told her everything. The blood work, the oncologist, the waiting, the gym, the accusations. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she leaned back against the counter, crossed her arms, and said the one sentence that lodged itself permanently in my chest. When things get hard, people show you their instincts. I stared at the floor. Your instinct, she continued gently, was to protect him from fear. His was to protect himself from abandonment. The truth of it hurt worse than the accusation itself. The next few days passed in a blur. Ethan texted constantly, not demanding, not angry, just apologies, explanations, long messages about his past, about Brianna, about how betrayal had rewired his brain in ways he thought he'd healed from. I never meant to turn you into her, he wrote. I hate myself for that. I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't angry. I was disoriented, like the person I'd planned my future with had failed a test I didn't know we were taking. On Monday, I went back to the apartment to pick up more clothes. Ethan was there, sitting at the kitchen table like he'd been afraid to move. I told my parents, he said quietly, about everything. I paused. And? They're disappointed in me, he admitted. My mom said I sabotaged the best thing that ever happened to me. I nodded. This isn't about your parents, I said. I know, he said quickly. It's about me not trusting you, about me being so damaged I couldn't see what was right in front of me. I looked at him, really looked. Ethan, I said, steady but firm. I was dealing with a potential cancer diagnosis. I was terrified. And instead of being my partner, you became my adversary. His eyes filled again. Do you understand how alone that made me feel? He nodded, tears spilling over. I do now, he whispered. I didn't then, but I do now. Sorry doesn't fix that, I said. I know, he said, but I'm trying to figure out what does. That week, he started individual therapy. He didn't ask me to come back, didn't push, didn't guilt. He just did the work, and that mattered more than any speech. 2 weeks into our separation, I had another appointment with Dr. Chen. I didn't tell Ethan. I didn't invite him. I wanted that space to be mine. But when I walked into the waiting room, there he was, standing up too fast, hands clasped like he didn't know what to do with them. I called your mom, he admitted. I wanted to know when your next appointment was. I bristled, just slightly. I know, he added quickly. That might not be okay. I wanted to be here, to support you, the way I should have before. I studied his face. No entitlement, no demand, just nervous hope. Do you want to come in? I asked. He nodded, swallowing hard. Inside, Dr. Chen went over my updated results. My numbers were improving. The regimen was working. If you keep this up, she said with a smile, your prognosis is excellent. She glanced between us. You have a good support system, I hope. I met Ethan's eyes. We're working on it, I said. Afterward, we went to a coffee shop across the street. We sat across from each other, cups untouched. I don't know if I can marry you, I said finally. He nodded. That's fair. I love you, I continued, but I don't know if I can trust that when things get hard again, and they will. You'll be there for me instead of against me. I wouldn't trust me either, he admitted quietly. Not the person I was then, but I'm trying to become someone you can. Why should I believe that? Because I understand what I almost lost, he said. The moment you told me about the cancer scare, the look on your face. I'll never forget it. You looked so calm, like you'd already accepted being alone in it. I didn't deny it. You were right, I said. You failed me. He nodded. I did. We sat in silence for a long time. Not awkward. Honest. 2 weeks later, I moved back into the apartment. Not because everything was fixed, but because I was tired of living out of a suitcase. And because sometimes rebuilding doesn't start with certainty. It starts with showing up anyway. Moving back in didn't feel like reconciliation. It felt like a ceasefire. We were careful with each other in a way that made everything feel fragile. Voices softer, movements slower, conversations edged with hesitation. We shared space, not certainty. The wedding invitations were still in a box under the bed. We didn't talk about them. Instead, we started couples counseling. The therapist's name was Marcus Reed, mid-40s, calm voice. The kind of man who didn't fill silence because he understood how much truth people dumped into it when they got uncomfortable enough. Our first session was brutal. Let's start with the incident, Marcus said, folding his hands. Not the accusation itself, but what it revealed. Ethan spoke first. I was scared, he said. I saw patterns and panicked. Marcus nodded, then turned to me. And you? I was terrified, I said, and I didn't feel safe sharing that fear with the person who was supposed to protect me. Marcus leaned back slightly. Ethan, he said, you projected unresolved trauma onto Naomi at the exact moment she needed support. That's not just insecurity, that's a breach of trust. Ethan flinched. Then Marcus turned to me. And Naomi, you withheld critical health information from your partner. You didn't owe him details on demand. But by staying silent, you denied him the opportunity to show up for you. I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it, because he wasn't wrong. Both of us had acted out of fear, just in opposite directions. The sessions were exhausting. Some days we cried. Some days we fought. Some days we sat in silence while Marcus waited, unmoving, until one of us said something real instead of safe. Slowly, patterns emerged. Ethan learned to recognize when his past was hijacking the present. I learned that protecting people from hard truths didn't make me strong. It made me alone. The wedding date came and went. We postponed it for planning reasons. In truth, we postponed it because neither of us was ready to promise something we hadn't yet rebuilt. 6 months after the accusation, Ethan brought it up again. Not dramatically, not with a ring or a speech. We were making dinner, something we'd return to carefully, like muscle memory. I don't know if you still want to marry me, he said quietly, chopping vegetables. And I won't pretend I deserve that answer yet. I watched him for a moment. But therapy has helped me see how much damage I was carrying, he continued. How I hurt you because I was afraid. I'm not that person anymore, or at least I'm not trying to be. I took a breath. I'm not the same person either, I said. The health scare changed me. It made me realize how much energy I spent being strong alone instead of asking for help. So where does that leave us? He asked. I don't know, I said honestly. I still love you, but love isn't enough. No, he agreed, but maybe it's a start. We didn't make any decisions that night, and somehow that felt like progress. A year changes things. Not all at once, not neatly, but in ways you only notice when you look back and realize you're standing somewhere you never expected to reach. It had been 12 months since the night Ethan accused me of cheating. 12 months since I sat in a parking lot bracing myself for a cancer diagnosis. 12 months since our relationship cracked open and forced us to look at what we'd been building underneath the image. We were still together. Still engaged, still without a wedding date. And for the first time, that didn't feel like failure. My health stabilized slowly but steadily. The lifestyle changes weren't a phase, they became structure. My liver function numbers normalized for the first time in over a year. Dr. Chen called me one of her quiet success stories. You listened, she said. Most people don't. Ethan came to more appointments, not because he demanded access, but because I invited him. That difference mattered. He stayed in therapy, not performatively, not just to fix us, but because he finally understood that his past didn't excuse the damage it caused in the present. There were still hard days. Days when I pulled inward out of habit. Days when I caught him watching me too closely, fear flickering before he could stop it. But we talked about those days. That was new. One evening, I came home pale and nauseous, a stomach bug that wouldn't let go. The old version of me would have minimized it, waited it out alone, told him later, once I had answers. Instead, I said, I need to see the doctor. Ethan didn't panic. He didn't accuse. He didn't spiral. He just grabbed his keys and said, okay, I'll come with you. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it together. That was the moment I knew we were different now. Not perfect. Not healed in a fairy tale way, but real. The engagement ring is still in my drawer. Next to the medical reports from my diagnosis. 2 reminders of what almost broke us and what forced us to grow. People ask me if I regret not telling him sooner. Maybe things would have been different. Or maybe we wouldn't have learned what we needed to learn about each other. The accusation hurt. The mistrust hurt. Coming home from a cancer screening to be accused of infidelity hurt in ways I still don't have language for. But it also showed me something essential. When life turns hostile, love is revealed in instinct, not intention. Ethan wasn't ready then. He is now. And I'm finally ready to let someone stand beside me instead of in front of me. Not a fairy tale, but something better, something honest.